Moo and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Pingtron. With us this week, we've got Steph Etienne. Steph, what are you drinking?
I did race one, had a recovery shake, some food already, and I'm just having some mildly sparkling water at the moment.
Great. Chris Greenland, what are you drinking?
Yeah, also coming off of race one. Got a lot going on my desk here. 48 ounces of water, almost done. Found the rest of some cold coffee from my morning calls. I have two recovery Miller Lights ready to tuck into, and what's left of a bottle of Buffalo Trace that's gonna get killed in the next hour here. No mushrooms though, sadly.
Speaking of,
I can fill in that gap. Yeah. I've got the leftover water bottle with some stuff in it. And since I have taken mushrooms into my heart as my personal Lord and Savior, I have Alive. This is the cola flavor.
hmm,
And it's got all your favorite mushrooms in it. So it tastes like sort of a knockoff cola.
how,
So many follow-up questions. What are your favorite mushrooms? How would you
Yeah, what are your favorite
what is
mushrooms?
the Mount Rushmore of mushrooms?
I
As
don't know. This has
I mean,
an
psilocybin's got to be up there, but then shiitake and
This is an adaptogenic mushroom infusion. So they've even infused these things. Turkey tail, chaga, reishi. I'm not sure how to even say that one. And yeah, those are the only, there's stevia in it.
I've
So,
heard good things about turkey tail from one of my
ah,
relatives who was going through some stuff, and she was leaning heavily on the properties of turkey tail, but that's the
I,
only one in that sentence that I
that's
I,
recognize.
that's her favorite
yeah,
mushroom.
Yeah,
I,
yeah. So in the pantheon of mushrooms, I guess turkey tails
yeah.
and shiitake, obviously for the cooking qualities. I'm partial to shiitake. The rest, I don't know. That first
No,
one,
I've never really cooked with any of these.
Well, speaking of, I am also on a mushroom drink. I bought a couple last week, so I've got the Odyssey passion fruit orange guava with lion's mane and cordyceps. So,
Can't go wrong with guava. Yeah.
well, yeah. Well,
and yeah, they like as I said last week, doesn't taste like mushrooms. So
Hmm.
that to me that's a positive for a drink.
Right.
and lion's mane and cordyceps, are those the ones that you just
Yep,
said? Those are both different mushroom types?
lion's mane known as the brain mushroom,
Oh.
and
Because it
cordyceps
looks like a brain or because it's good for your
good
brain?
for your brain. Yeah.
Okay.
And cordyceps, the energy mushroom. Uh, but also cordyceps is the one that, and we've talked about this a couple times, is the one that is the Last of Us mushroom that like infects the human race, and then
Somehow turns us into
but
zombies.
it is well. So this is a crossover with my work. Cordyceps is actually a fungus that infects mostly insects. And once they get infected, it does kind of take over their brains a bit, changes their behavior, and makes them climb up to the tops of like grasses. And then they bite onto the grass, die there, and then a mushroom grows out of their head. So the spores have a place to uh,
Oh,
disperse from. Yeah.
circle of
So
life.
so
Speaking of
cordyceps.
climbing to the top of
Oh, we've
the
got our
apex
sweaty.
Boom.
and growing mushrooms out of your head. I don't know how that fits in.
That was a great segue, John. But
Yeah.
I feel like
Love
before
the
we
sweaty
move on,
segue.
I think let's
So that means all three of you raced race one, yeah?
yeah.
What
Start,
what are we on this week?
well, Three Little Sisters. So, yeah, it was for anyone that doesn't know the race, it's basically straight out of the gate, up hilly KOM, then flat, then Titans, grove forward. the longer version at least.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Forward.
And then Volcano. I started good, but had a pretty good hilly K1, but decided to late join and felt it afterwards. I got spat from what's with the main bunch, but right out of the water tunnels up to Titan's Grove, they pushed a bit and got dropped and did Titan's Grove, but stopped right at the start of Volcano. Exit the race at the end. Didn't have legs for me, but yeah.
For the others of you, John said that when we were first hopped on here, he was like, that was a bit of chaos.
Yeah, there was a lot of, unlike some of our previous HSRL races, there was a lot of mixing of the groups all race long. I think the C's overtook the D's on the backside of the Zwift KOM, so within 4 or 5 kilometers out of the gate, and then the A's screamed through the C group, the front C group, at the base of Titans, or a little before the base of Titans, and then another B group came through in Titans, and then Chris caught me at the Volcano. So it was a real mix.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's chaos right out the gate. Like you're climbing within a K on the time. And so, like the A's and the B's meet up as you get off the pier, and then they just shred each other to bits immediately. And I gotta say, like the demise of Zwift has been greatly exaggerated. The numbers in this just the B race, we've got 19 on Zwift Power. It was something like 30 something, I think, actually in game. It was a big field after, I checked the numbers last night before going to sleep. I think there were 8 people registered for this. So just a really good turnout, but some strong riders in B. So I'm happy with what I did, but I'm well down in the standings. But it was, good effort. It was lots of fun going 3 times up hills, and then you come back down and finish at the downtown banner with a nice little sprint, and then you fall over your handlebars and try not to die.
Ends up being about 38K. How long did it take you guys?
Solid hour, like right on the money. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, this is for those of you who raced the ZRL on Tuesday, this is like a kind of shortened version of that route to a degree. Like,
what was that one?
So that one was you come out of the gate, do the Zwift Hilly immediately. You go back down into the tunnels, and instead of doing Titans forward, you go around and do Titans reverse. Come down, and then you go and do the whole coast before doing that double of the new climbs, the Mayan mountainside and Itza whatever.
It's a clam.
The Itza Kam.
It's a clam.
But that combo of climbs is actually very similar to like a lengthened volcano, because there's a 4-ish minute climb part and then a flatter part in the middle and then a steeper part to finish. So it did actually, like, I was looking at this route and it was like, wow, you add another 10K of flat in the middle and finish it at the end of the volcano, and it'd be a very similar race.
Oh yeah.
And yet such different results. In ZRL, I got spat out the back of a non-points race. That was just a scratch race, right? The ZRL version of it. Got spat out the back. I think I finished 45th out of 50th or something. I could look it up here. And then in the points race, where you would think people would be going even harder on the Zwift KOM, I managed to hold the front group. So I don't know if it's just caliber of other riders. But
yeah, it was a bit.
Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, it was a bit weird because I was at the start, didn't know how I would feel, but was not really deliberately tailgating, but was at the back and went pretty quickly through the group and top 10. I think I got like 6 across on top of the line and 7th FTS.
Yeah.
So
we were
yeah,
moving.
it was weird that it was pretty full on, but still, yeah.
Uh, any tactical things that you feel like people should know?
I would say power up banners. Like I wasn't super familiar with where we were getting power ups throughout this route, so I would see people drop them and either say, "Oh shoot, we're hitting the banner soon," or "That was silly." Um, so walking it back in my mind, you do not get one. You come back through the downtown banner between Titans and Volcano, so you'll get another one there.
Yeah.
So if you need to
And
use something on the rollers coming out of like Titans Grove, feel free to drop it because you'll get it downtown, but you do not get another one between downtown and the top of the volcano. But you
yeah,
do get the volcano banner after descending the volcano climb
Oh,
and
so you
hitting
get one for
downtown.
the
You
finish.
get a bonus one for the
Mhm.
finish, yeah. So feel if you need like a draft to hold on to a group on the descent, feel free to pop it there because you're going to get it. But you will also have that double climb up into the middle of the volcano after the descent to get to that banner. So if you need to hang on to a feather for that or whatever, like that's a good spot to pop that.
John, based on the timing of the chaos that you mentioned, it seems like the C group might be the only one that could potentially benefit from dropping back into a faster group for Titans forward. It's a very draftable climb, and it sound like
Yeah.
when did the B group actually catch?
It was probably the lead B group, and we were past the beginning of the climb, but not when it really pitches up steeply. So yeah, you could have. I mean, I tried to catch, and I did for I don't know, 500 meters before I got sort of dropped off.
Yeah, those guys were flying though. That's like Terry
They
Lindsay,
were,
Dan
yeah,
Manello, psychologist was in there. Like they were just killing it.
Were they so the point that I'm making is were they going super hard? So you might be able to drop back a bit before basically keep an eye on where that group is because if you are uh, in the front group but the B group is 10 seconds behind, you could drop back, sit on their wheels for the flatter part of the KOM and get dragged back up to the C group. Um, it's
yeah.
dangerous. It's dangerous because if you get dropped from that group before you catch, then you're
No man's land.
in some difficulty. But
And that brings up an ask I would have of Zwift is if we could see the riders on our little chart on the right-hand side and see their power output and see their what category they're in, like I could at least time when I'm going to try to latch onto them rather than just seeing dots approach and then people fly by me at
yeah.
2 watts a kilo faster than me. So I'm never going to catch that. So
I
So
meant
when
to
you
try that hack that Craig had mentioned, where if you like fan view somebody in another category, then they'll show up. But
that's right.
when you're in the heat of the moment, um, I don't want to risk like flipping up. But there's certainly time to do that. Maybe after the initial climb, probably flip around and find somebody and see if that works.
Mhm.
But we shouldn't have to do that, right? But
Yeah.
bike choice.
I just had a pink Tron.
yeah, I just went pink because that's
yeah,
what I was on, and I like had 0 minutes to get ready after finishing up work calls this morning. I think you can probably go arrow on this one.
I think
That's
I
probably the way
probably
to go.
would.
Yeah.
Especially the second and third climbs are both it's 2.2 and 3.2% average. Um, draft and it's gonna those are gonna be fast climbs. I don't know what well I guess they'll still be fast. The draft is going to be less beneficial for a lot of people because of all the chaos and like I don't know, John, how big was the group that you were in by the time you were at that climb?
The volcano was me and one other sea rider until we got to sort of those last two rocks where you can just barely see the banner, and then a big group of seas came through
Yeah.
and sort of scooped us up.
So yeah, I could see the argument for going full aero here. I mean, similar to that ZRL race on Tuesday, a lot of people were on full aero for that as well. Even though the climbs are what matter here. So there's a trade-off to be made, especially on the hilly KOM. But I think either is defensible.
I think it matters if you're gonna that first hard hilly KOM, like if you're gonna get dropped from that, you need I would have benefited from some more aero for the rest of the course. But
Great. Anything else for HSRL? All right, then moving on to Herd Beginner Racing, our weekly D category racing series. I still don't think that we've moved over to the incorporating the Cs. Is that right? Or lower
No, it's still the C to E within the subcategories. And it's on course. I think 2 laps of it's in Brooklyn, so quite a classic one. For the E's, I think it's 2 laps, and for the two higher subcategories, it's 3 laps. With basically with leg snapper, toe snapper combo as a key feature.
Yeah, so the route itself is about 9K, so we'll end up being somewhere in the range of 18 to 27, depending on which category you're in. Yeah, with that, 400 meters of 7% as the differentiator, and that's a big differentiator in these lower categories, especially, right? Like, there's going to be big differences in how much effort people can put out for that minute plus. Yeah. I think you get on a Tron or something, similarly all around capable, and just go stay in the group as much as you can and go hard on the leg snapper, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and I think somebody said it as well. If you're on the leg snapper, keep the power up because right at the top, people ease up, and you can lose some time with that, and also straight away the downhill you have that little kicker with the toe snapper, but to keep the power there as well, to don't get capped as well. So
Yeah. That a 5 meter gap can balloon out there really easily if you're not careful. Great. So moving on, we've got the Climber's Gambit, Chris.
Yes, Climber's Gambit. We are on Leith Hill. Excuse me, Leith Hill in London this weekend. As a reminder, Sean, I know you're on the Lion's Mane brain mushrooms, but in case you need a reminder, this is our weekly hill climb series, where only the time on the climb segment counts. So Leith Hill is, what do we got? Some measure of distance at some gradient.
1.9K at 7%.
1.9 at 7%, like I said. And this is the one where you got to do the climb up to the climb, but the climb up to the climb doesn't matter. If anything, it just opens up the legs a little bit. Start line comes at about 16-ish kilometers, and the total route this weekend is 20. It's the fastest way to the base of this, so apologies in advance. But the double is still on the table in case you need to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's a steep one. I think it's climbing bike all around. There's no flat part. There's no descent at the end. It's just straight uphill, essentially.
Times are going to be similar to the Fox Hill times last week, I think. Very similar distance and gradient. So if you raced it last week, you can kind of base it off of that. If you didn't, probably again, maybe 30 seconds longer, but like A's probably in that 5.5 minute, B's in the 6.5, C's like, and this is kind of top of category. C's probably 7, 7.5, and D's probably 8.5, 9.
Yeah, it's indeed quite a long warm up, and you have that stupid climb before the climb that doesn't count. You have like I think a stretch of 2 kilometers where you're already climbing before you actually hit the banner.
This is one
bonus warm up.
This is one with the, with there being 15, 16K before you hit the start of the climb, plus the 2Ks of climbing beforehand, where the people who don't understand so there are races where people who don't understand that this is about the climb are still going to affect the races because they're strong and they just do whatever, top of C people just doing 3.4 for the whole race for, 7K or whatever, and still doing a pretty good climb time. That's not going to be the case on this one because people who are racing it like a scratch race are not going to have saved nearly enough for the actual Leap Hill segment.
Yeah, they're gonna basically, if you're going like race pace or sub-threshold sweet spot, you will have burned a lot of matches beforehand. And people keep doing it for some other reason. But yeah.
I think bike choice for this is probably full climber. You could go Tron, but you're probably only losing a few seconds or a couple seconds that way. But I do think climber's probably the way to go on this.
Mm-hmm.
And you can ease it up. You can decide to go for the first bit through London on an all-rounder aero, just or start on a cloud, or TT or whatever, and then switch right after you go down the escalator into the surreal, switch to a climber bike for the actual climbing part.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Just get the flap out.
This is actually another one of those races that I like where you can get the warm up on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have probably close to a half an hour before you actually hit the climb. So plenty of time to get a good warm up in.
Yep.
One more week after this?
Correct. Yep. Final exam next weekend.
Decided on the final climb?
I've yes and no. I've decided on part of the element of the final climb.
Okay.
I'm still writing the final exam, as it were.
Keep your secrets, Mr. Green.
But regarding that, it was fun to see because I did one of the on a workout at the the 2 KOMs and then up the last part of the grade up to a KOM. Was surprised to see that they changed the landscape of Epic KOM for a bit for the forward.
It's nicer now.
You don't have the cliffs anymore. It's more evenly snow.
Yeah, they redid Nate sent out the side-by-side pictures in our chat.
Yeah.
They resurfaced the road. They built up the landscaping. There's, Public Works planted some fresh trees, as you pointed out, John. I think you even had the species identified.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to open up a ski resort, is my thought.
I mean, yeah,
definitely
not to. The lifts are there, right? You create some more runs. Yeah, just really, really nice job. And I specifically asked James if there was a way to build out like a mega KOM that starts before Mayan and encompasses that whole route. Mayan, Itza, grade, epic, radio tower, and
Wow.
it's a system limitation. They can't overlay one like Uber climb on multiple segments. So unfortunately not. So I'll have to figure something else out with that.
Yeah. But that, I mean, that is still potentially something that, I mean, not that I don't know that there's a route that does it, but
Not yet, but
yeah.
I can see that being one of those like event only.
An event only array.
Yep.
Bit like with the longer version of Mountain Mesh, where you have that variant where you start at the jungle pens, go down a bit, and do the last part of epic KOM reverse, do something similar, but then maybe do start at the great pens, do go up to, like you said, Mayan mountain side. It's a KOM up the final part of the great epic KOM, and then radio tower would be a means scratch rate, because that's a long climb. That's I think that's probably an hour plus climb from the bottom to the top of radio tower.
Did they add new pens somewhere on the coast?
Yeah, there's
at
things down.
the start of the down the grades, there are a set of pens.
Like
Yeah.
in between all those sprints, or at the
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's right at the base of the grade. So like if you're doing the grade as an event, you come out of the pens and immediately you're like pointing at that straight road. You're at the end of that straight road. You just go like straight up the climb.
Okay, I think I did see that at the end of ZRL. We came down and just sort of went round and round and round the roundabout and like never ejected.
Did you also get you
I
get
was like,
stuck on the new velodrome?
where am I going? It's not spitting me out.
Well, technically, people pointed out you can do like roundabout loops on that roundabout at the bottom of the grade. If you want to do, you can just keep going in circle.
If you want to, it's there were several people. So I think John and I think Sean Varley also. They didn't want to. They just got stuck at the base of. It was like I guess this is our ride now.
What was it a Chevy Chase movie? There's some movie where they drive around the roundabout in England. Yeah, that's the way I felt.
Yeah.
Good.
And as a reminder, it's not a bug; it's a feature from Zwift.
Yeah, this like I said, they've been talking about. They've had people wanting them to put a velodrome in for a long time. They've finally started listening to their critics. Yeah. So moving on, it is not on the schedule, so I'm not sure whether we've got a herd of mountain goats this week.
Shocked.
Yeah, and technically last week it said Road to Sky, but I think it was one of the, so it was peak performance last week. So again,
as usual, we do not know what is actually happening in herd of mountain goats, if anything.
We should rename the podcast All the Herd Races Except Mountain.
Also, there would be like 7 weeks ago, Matt announced the Master League race starting in 4 weeks, which is also not at the moment. Well,
yeah, well, I'm sure we'll
it will come to that.
We'll know at some point. So moving on, we've got Stampede. We are in the second to last week of the of this series. I forget the name of the series, but so this one is on 13K of Flatland Loop, which is basically all of the flatter parts of Umazi. So the steepest, like the climbiest bit is you go up from the sprint through the village onsen, and up to the kind of castle area,
Yeah.
which has the village sprint at the top of it. So, but it is 13K, 99 meters of climbing, nothing steeper than a couple percent. Yeah, I think the steepest extended section is about 2 to 3. Should be somewhere in the 20 to probably 20-ish minutes for faster Bs. Yeah, so 20 minutes is 40 kph, so I guess you can put it in that. And these will probably be in the 22, maybe 24-minute range. Yeah. So, yeah, get out there, go fast. Series ends next week. Also,
And
no
still,
bullseye. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was about to say, still no bullseye.
Yeah, no bullseye listed. So we'll see when that comes back. And for next week, HSRL on Neoki All-Nighter. So we'll have a sprint fest for all of you who have been frustrated by the climbs today. We get back to something more like a couple weeks ago. And HBR will be on TikTok. So for Around the Horn, we should have just recorded this after last week because we had a full discussion.
Yeah.
Could have had a bonus Around the Horn. But a couple weeks ago, what do they call it? The Zwift Ride
Zwift Ride
Yeah.
with kicker
Yeah.
core.
Was released. So at some point a couple of years ago, maybe it was they were talking about making a Zwift bike that looked like a Tron. The idea was we'll compete with like the kicker bike, all those smart bikes. And then they dissolved that team and announced that they were canceling development of that bike. They then came out with their own trainer. But it was designed and actually built by a different company. But they had done some branding and made things kind of an easier experience, made it really easy to integrate with Zwift. And I think that ended up being a pretty good trainer. I think a lot of people actually used that. It was cheap, best kind of entry-level trainer. And now they have introduced it's a combo at this point, but it sounds like they're going to sell the frame separately, a frame that you can connect to a trainer that is adjustable in all of the ways that a smart bike is, integrates all of the kind of Zwift controls as a way to kind of compete with smart bikes. What do you guys think?
I was just looking at all of the offerings on Zwift's website, and I didn't realize it's the same cost as a Wahoo kicker, like the full kicker, not the core.
Yeah.
Which that's definitely surprising.
Wait, the kicker's $1,300 now?
The kicker is $1,300. The core is only $650 US. These are all US dollars.
Yeah. Which, when I was buying my trainer, I remember pricing the kicker versus the core and just not realizing why anyone would buy a regular kicker versus core. I don't know what the difference is, but it doesn't seem like it's.
I think it's like a slightly
$500
bigger flywheel and a different configuration.
I feel like they must have gone up because I bought one, what was that, 3 years ago, for like 600 or 700. That was like the V5 kicker.
Yeah, you might have gotten a post-COVID inventory blowout deal.
Yeah.
And then when you compare with the other end of the spectrum, right, the Wahoo Kicker Shift, which is their full smart bike, that's 3,000 US. And then the Kicker bike that tips forward, tips back with terrain is 4,000 US. So, I mean, the price is pretty shocking. And you said it's as adjustable. It's not, I guess you don't have the adjustable crank length. That's the only thing you lose from the Kicker Shift and the Kicker bike.
Which is, and I think they include 170s or 172.5 cranks.
I think
170.
70s. Yeah.
I mean, that's
So those are
good for
pretty
him.
short cranks for me. I don't know that I
Let's not use. Remind us how tall you are, Sean.
6'6". So yeah, that wouldn't be ideal for me. But I think are you guys all on 170s?
And 172 fives, but I think when I read the crank length calculator, it said I should be on 170s. But it seems like for my frame size, it just ships with the 172 fives. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm on. And to be fair, I think that's right because I'm going for my like outdoor road bike. I'm not sure if this offset matters, but I'm going to smaller and smaller chain rings. So I feel like having that torque of a longer crank probably matters, which is why when I just changed my cranks, I just stuck with the 172 fives. Again, that might not matter, and I might just be blowing smoke, but that's the decision that I made.
So I do know that in terms of crank length, one of the like there is an ideal size, but there are definitely people who, and this is I think with crits, like a lot of people choose shorter cranks so that you don't clip your toe. Like you don't
The heels,
as you're cornering, you don't actually pedal strike
pedal
as you're
strike.
going around corners. That like extra couple of millimeters gives you a couple extra degrees that you can tilt your bike over. And there is something to it about like, well, you just pedal faster. Your body gets used to like, okay, I can't torque things as hard, so I'll just pedal faster. And it yeah, works that way.
Yeah, the recumbent bike human powered vehicle community all love 165s, even like 155s they'll go to, which seems very spinny.
So John, you had mentioned that this was something that you might be interested in.
I mean, it does fit the niche of people who have multiple riders in the family. So my wife rides occasionally, likes to race like the Zwift tiny races. So that would be a bonus of having two setups, right? And having to switch and adjust everything is nice. Just, you know, keep track of what you're switching. And my daughter rides occasionally. So I think there's a niche there. I guess the question is the price differential between a Zwift bike or a Kicker bike versus this enough to push you over the edge? And I guess it'll be interesting to see what just the trainer or what the frame without the trainer. Yeah, the frame without the trainer is going to cost for those of us who already have a trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because look at here, it's because Eric Schlang did a sort of review. It seems it would be compatible with Swift Hub, the Wahoo Kicker Core, the Wahoo Kicker V6, and the Wahoo Kicker Move.
Because those are the ones that support virtual shifting at this point. Is that correct? I tell you what, if they offer these like the levers that are in place of the plays, I might just pick up a pair of those and bolt those onto my trainer bike. Like that's a much better solution than having the
brake levers that don't work and the Zwift.
Yeah, like the legacy brake levers and then the plays. that slip all over the place under load.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So Chris, what you're talking about is that on this, it has a new ergonomic setup where the levers themselves that you would have where you would have your brakes and shifters integrates it's the same shape as on a normal road bike, but integrates all of the Zwift Play
Yeah.
stuff. So you wouldn't have to. So on your bike now, you have your brake levers and stuff, and then you also have the Zwift Play stuff
Correct.
on
I've got my
there.
old Ultegra
Yeah.
9-speed gear that basically I don't use for any other reason because this is my dedicated trainer bike.
Yeah, if you
I can strip all that and just replace them with these. Like that would be cool. But I love how they have the whole handlebar taped here, which presents problems for me because that would just all be that would all be rusted out within 3 months in my garage.
yeah, if people want to see it, there's of the basically the Swift Play brake cockpit, if you want to call it, which where you normally have your fingers. There's on Zwift Insider, there's a Zwift Ride review where there's some pictures where you can see it how it's integrated, which is what is also interesting. Might be changed, but apparently they're doing a couple of configs for it has virtual shifting, but some configs where you can apparently switch your shifting style if it's sequential, Shimano style, or SRAM style, and also you can have a gear range, for different gear ranges. It seems mixed terrain. It's a 1x24 flats, all rounder, and climbing gear range sets. So you can, but that's maybe public to change. But yeah, it's
What I find really interesting in the design is if you look at the chain line of it, it is not the traditional chain line of a bicycle, which makes me really wonder if they're going to come out with a belt drive version to deal with the chain wear.
So I think that the reason, so that's an interesting approach too. But so the reason that they have to do that is because you're essentially setting this up as a single speed, right? So it doesn't have a derailleur. So
Right.
it doesn't have anything to essentially add tension to the chain. And so they've essentially just added a chain tensioner. But
they could have done that on the chainstay somewhere.
Yeah, essentially put a little derailleur, except that's not actually derailing anything, just that is a little pulley.
Yeah. But they've chosen not to have it so that you'd have to break the chain to get it off the bike, right? The way it's there right now, you can take your chain off. You'd have to take the bike off the trainer, but then the chain would just come off, and like Chris, who's going to, or probably is now fully waxed, would never have to break a chain to wax the chain. You just take the whole loop off, drop it in your waxer, put it back on the bike.
Yeah, because the chain line now doesn't go around that bottom chainstay. It goes through that rear triangle.
Right, which was always is the problem with the belt drives, is you either have to have something that you can unscrew something to allow the belt to go over that, or you have your chain or your belt drive system come up over the chainstay and then around your gears.
So how does a belt drive work?
Belt drive's the same as a chain. You have to have a little bit of motion for the tensioner, but I mean, the main problem with it is you basically have to put in screws in the back right chainstay, seat stay triangle so that you can take off where your derailleur would be, essentially, to let the belt go over the thing and then bolt it back on. But
would it work with with a traditional chain
Cog?
rings?
No, they would have to, right. They'd have to retrofit the chain rings, and the Zwift One
Yeah.
cog would then be, probably a 3 millimeter wide or whatever the spec is for belt drives. But yeah,
But if so, what you're getting at is like there is an alternative there if they're interested in it to potentially really extend the life of your drivetrain.
yeah, and make it quieter, right? I mean, I think that's one of the benefits of the kicker bike and the kicker bike shift or whatever they call it. Like there's no chain wear, there's none of that, and it's a quieter bike. Where here, if you went to a belt drive, I mean, there's still some friction and some wear, but I actually don't know what the belt drive, how long you can get out of a belt. Is it a 10,000 kilometer kind of thing? Or...
Well, I would go with like based on cars, I'll use belts rather than chains. Like there's definitely a reason for longevity and strength for doing it that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, really interesting thought there. Yeah, so I do think that this makes sense for, as John said, people who have multiple riders in the house, especially potentially if they don't all have their own bikes to put on a trainer. Also, and this is something that would deter me, is if you can just leave it set up, right? So like this actually, if you can't leave it set up, this is definitely better than a smart bike, because a smart bike you kind of have to leave it set up. This you could still put it on, take it off. So having a dedicated area isn't a requirement, but that's something that I think for multiple people riding, I think you generally want to be able to kind of just leave it, set it, and move it around, or adjust it. The one thing that I did think was an interesting point that I think it was in the DC Rainmaker announcement. This is going to change the industry in a way, where the thought of having a full smart bike may not necessarily be the thing anymore, because you can get 90-something% of, 95% of the things a smart bike can do for less than half of the price. Especially if you've already got a trainer. Now you just need this, a frame to put on the trainer. But, and this is the case currently, it really locks you into Zwift. So if you're, the other thing that like, this is a thing for you, is if you do most of your riding on Zwift, or you really don't want to use your outside bike on the trainer, and you don't want to have, too many bikes. So if you're really locked into Zwift as your main riding, the main place that you ride, I think this is another thing that, like, yeah, that might actually make some sense.
I hadn't thought of the weight until you just mentioned it, Sean, where like if you're space constrained in a small apartment or a small space and you need to like move it occasionally, it's going to be way easier to move than a dedicated bike, right?
Yeah, but probably still, this is almost certainly going to be heavier than just a bike frame, right? Like I've got a carbon frame, and I just like it just hangs on my wall in the room, and I have my my trainer in the closet next to me. I just move my bike, my chair out of the way, pull the trainer out, pull the bike off the wall, ride, then put them back.
Yeah, so it'll be a little heavier than that, but certainly lighter than a kicker shift or a kicker.
But yeah, so if you have multiple riders and you don't want to have 4 different bikes that you're putting on a trainer, having this one thing that is still light enough that you can just pop it somewhere. It doesn't have a wheel, so storage when it's not on the frame or when it's not on the trainer could be a little different.
And the chain's going to fall off,
Um,
right?
not
I mean,
necess-
potentially. I mean, if you
It's
can
gonna
hang it
droop a
on the
little
chain
bit,
ring, but it's
Oh.
not gonna, it doesn't like hang like yours does, right? Where it's going through that rear triangle.
Yeah, there's a I'll just
Is there a chain, like
it
a
looks like there's a like a little
chain
place
hanger?
for it to you can run the chain around essentially where it mounts on the trainer.
Oh, okay.
And you
So
can
there's
just
like
kind of,
that through axle. You can just pop that through, right, and keep it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems indeed on that review video, it has it out of the box, and the chain is pretty secured indeed.
Okay.
that's another, I guess another thing that does make it a little more difficult is is it a through axle rather than a quick release?
It looked like it. It looked smooth on the outside. I didn't see
A
a
drive
quick
back
run.
through axle, it says here on the review. So yeah.
Yeah, so that also makes it a little harder to think of it as a thing that you just remove and like you take off, you put it on, you move it around like regularly. You just kind of want like for through axles, it doesn't take a long time, but it's definitely a lot longer than the 2 seconds of like tightening and quick release.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's good. I mean, this seems like a good solution. If I were at a point where I were needing to reboot my entire setup, like this is a strong case. It's a turnkey solution. It offers some flexibility. It's like clean out of the box and offers, maximum usability, minimum faffing. I can see it. Like for where I'm at, like I would love to just buy those levers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do
And
find it really funny that when when this was first announced, Steve was all over this as like, who the hell would buy just a frame? Or like who would buy this? What is the use case for this? And then we started talking about it, and it was like, okay, well, I guess if the alternative that you're looking at is a smart bike and it's $1,700 cheaper, like, okay, maybe, but who's just going to buy that frame? And then I think a lot of us were like, well, I don't know, in the right circumstance, that does actually make some sense.
yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
I'm not ruling it out.
Yeah, because it depends. It's like $1,300 or euros for inclusion with that wow kicker Zwift hub, whatever. And the regular one, including 1 year subscription, is like 650. So it's half of that. So yeah, if you already have like mine, for instance, if my 10-year-old bike have now on my Zwift hub brakes or whatever, and if the price is the difference or a bit more, it's basically the same. I can just replace my old road bike with the frame of that Zwift Ride and put it on my Zwift hub and good to go. Might need a Zwift Hog though.
John, you had mentioned. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, the one thing that I had the point that I was going to make earlier and then forgot because, ADHD is the in the DC Rainmaker review, they did mention that this does lock you into Zwift.
Yeah.
And when so just in the last few months, people have been saying, as Chris mentioned, like maybe not as many people have left Zwift as they've said because the numbers in these races are still good, but prices go up. You don't have the ability to vote with your wallet and go somewhere else if this is really kind of locked into Zwift. So good for good as an option, like good in the short term as like gives you a whole lot more options in terms of what you can do to interact with Zwift. Maybe bad for the consumer in the longer term as a, yeah, but you're then kind of stuck on Zwift unless Zwift really opens this up to, being able to use virtual shifting in whichever other platform you want to use or kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see that in other industries, right? Like we talk about the price point relative to the kicker offerings, and it's maybe discounted hardware, but subscription model. And I think that's kind of the trade-off there. Like you're going less out of pocket for the Zwift Ride or the Apple iPhone, but then you're getting locked into a contract with whatever provider is providing the discounted hardware. And I think that it strikes me as pretty similar in this instance. And hey, I've tried some of the alternatives. I'm pretty happy with what Zwift offers. And I mean, people label it as a price hike. I think it was not necessarily a hike. I think it was in line with market needs and more than justified. I'm still getting the value, so I have no problem paying up as things go up and to the right, as they always do. So yeah, it seems in line with the market. No
And it's
issue.
not to say, I mean, Zwift keeps at least giving lip service to them, allowing the open shifting or the virtual shifting to be open source. I don't know that they've made tremendous efforts to make that happen, but they've said they are not opposed to it, at least as I understand it from the various outlets.
Their stuff.
And I did just realize, like, when we had been talking about that and kind of as you mentioned, Chris, like this is a subscription model. And if they provide a bike that you have invested to be able to use their service, and you have invested, a not insignificant amount of money, you are then potentially, like, I'm now at 6 years of Zwift riding a lot, like almost every day for most of those 6 years. I just did the math, and that's over $1,000, like closing in on $1,100 that I've put into the Zwift coffers. If I mean, not everyone's going to be like me. There's the yearly subscriptions. There's the people who go off of Zwift for months at a time. But in that, like, if they get people hooked on riding on Zwift, that is a bigger potential investment for them than, selling this at $2,000 instead.
Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned the alternative, the alternatives. I did a ride on, shoot, what's the name of the
My
the other one, the one that was
IndieVelo?
IndieVelo.
Oh,
Yeah, I got on IndieVelo earlier this week.
What is that?
One of the things that I was really interested in, and this is something that people always complain about, is Zwift is too fast, right? The roads are perfect, the groups always have perfect drafting, all of those things. So you get these groups that move around a lot faster, and like even just you riding on your own, you ride around a lot faster than you do outside. Turns out you do on IndieVelo as well. Those groups were cooking. And one of the things that I do like in there, there's wind built in.
Yeah, what about being?
So the drafting really does matter more when you're in a tailwind than for, like, you end up having to put out more power to go in the group in a tailwind than you do in a headwind. because you're getting less draft.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
The
it's more.
the
Yeah, I think
position
it's
in the
more.
group matters, like specifically where you are in the group, because you might have the wind coming in from the left versus the right. Yeah.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's yeah. Watched a couple of videos where some guys going over the Swift alternative, and I think IndieVelo it's just one guy, but it's more yeah realistic, but also more unlike what we want from Zwift. Swift is still mainly a ride or group ride or workout platform with some racing elements in it. And I think IndieVelo is seem to be more on the core based on like races or whatever. Like we said in the past, it has like for points races, it has an in-game points there where you see how many points you got or whatever, which we're complaining all the time with Zwift. Now with these points races, you don't have it built in, and
Yeah.
IndieVelo has it. So
It's definitely, it's very clear that that's where the development has gone for that like the what he's developing first is the platform to make racing good, and that includes the pack dynamics, the wind, the physics, and it includes like the engine to how to deal with showing you what's happening in races. And what hasn't been, I think the focus of development is making the world look great yet. Like the textures don't look amazing. There's still really bad kind of pop in, like where you're riding along and then the trees, you know, don't show up until you're a certain distance away from them, or they like are a really simple polygon and then they look like a tree.
Mm.
Those kinds of things. So like visually, it's still got some issues, but like all of the things that racers complain about on Zwift are built in from the start in IndieVelo, which I'm I'm intrigued. I'm probably gonna try and do some racing on there at some point, and um, yeah, will be interesting to see how that develops because as Steph said, it is just one guy at this point, and it is a former Zwift developer who left Zwift to create an alternative.
Nice. Keep us posted on your experiences.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
wanted to
but
John, for your I think it's widely known here amongst us, but I am moving over to the waxing world.
Yeah.
So I've only done like a local installation lap on my new drivetrain, and amazing so far. Once I figured out that I had my chain routed incorrectly through my rear derailleur tabs, and that's where all the clack clack was coming from.
We've all been there.
Yep. So
Did that
fix
one.
that, and then yeah, just smooth. Love it. Smooth and silent. Um, do you have your trainer bike waxed as well? And then how do you do you re-wax your trainer at a different interval than you do your outdoor bike? And how do you track all that? Like what
So
are the details on this?
for tracking, I'm just using Garmin because Zwift, syncs up to Garmin and Strava and everything. And in Garmin, you can assign a gear to any of your bike rides. And so I just call it chain one. And then I make that
Okay.
my default thing. And so then it just adds up. And I think I change it every 1200 or 1200 kilometers or so. And when it gets close to that, I'll switch it to chain two and make that the default and then sort of go back and forth. So yeah, my trainer's all waxed. And that's the immersion wax. Like I take it off the
Yeah.
bike, I drop it in the crock pot and do that. And then about I don't know, every other week or so, I'll use it just a little bit of the drip wax just to fill in the, anything that's all chipped off and gotten onto the floor. Because you can see little piles of the wax that sort of gets shaved off as you're riding and riding and riding all those miles. So I think it's like every 200 kilometers. I think I remember the guys at Silka saying about every 100 to 200 kilometers, you can use a little drip wax on there, and that seems to quiet it down quite a bit, at least initially for the next ride you take.
Okay, so there's audio cues as well, like you notice the drivetrain getting louder.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Like today, I haven't waxed in a couple weeks, and it was like, oh, should I drip wax it before the race? But then I think they also say in Silka, don't do that. Like wait till you're done with your ride, put the wax on. And I found that especially if you do it after a race, you can feel a little warmth on the chain. Certainly, you can feel warmth on your trainer, right? So there's a little warmth on the chain, and putting the wax on there, I think that heat just allows that capillary action to get the wax down in between the rollers and the plates and all that kind of stuff.
And I think they mentioned that because you want the carrier to evaporate away, right? So
Mhm.
when
That
you're
too, yeah.
when you're using that drip wax, like there's wax inside of a carrier solution essentially that
It's emulsified in the water, and the water will evaporate and just leave behind the wax. Yeah. And I think there's
Yeah,
titanium.
and if it's warm, I can see why it says after race, because why it's, yeah.
Nice. Are you waxing as well, Steph? Like,
Not yet. Might be interested in doing it. Uh, the only thing I fear is because I still need to do some maybe some technique to untie, yeah, remove the chain and certain stuff. I need never done anything like that, so that's something I need to learn as well. But might
yeah,
be
same.
interesting.
This is all uncharted territory for me as well. Like the whole quick release chain, waxing, all of it, cleaning up everything. I do still have a healthy amount of lube, so the outdoor bike is waxed, but I think the trainer bike is going to be on lube for a foreseeable future until I can run through what I got in the interest of conservation and materials usage. But at some point we'll flip it over. Yeah.
John, do you have a trick for setting a quick link? I always find it really easy to do by just like holding the rear brake and essentially like kicking down on the
Oh,
pedal.
yeah.
When you've got a wheel on.
Right.
I don't know how I would set a quick link
On the
on a
trainer.
trainer.
I suppose you could do the same. I mean, the trainer's got enough of that, a little bit of resistance. So if you
Inertia.
did it,
Yeah.
inertia, yeah. I mean, I came to Zwift as a bike mechanic, so I've got like buckets of tools. So that
The ones
Park
that just
Park makes a tool that goes both ways,
Yeah, you can pop it
squeezes
in,
it and
right?
unlocks
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So I've got a couple of those banging around somewhere. That's usually what I do. Yeah. Yeah, I did my trainer first, and then I did my 1 speed outside bike because I'm finding I don't ride outside in the rain as much as I used to pre-COVID when I would ride to and from the office. Um, Rain or shine, which in Seattle is a lot of rain in the wintertime. So I don't know if I would wax in Seattle in the wintertime. I mean, you get a lot of road grit thrown up on the bike, and I feel like that would just play havoc with a waxed chain. I mean, the wax would repel it a little bit, but I wonder how much.
Chris, you were mentioning like how do you track it? I know that there are apps. I have one called Pro Bike Garage that allows you to assign different gear to different bikes, and then like when you ride on Strava, it will, if you're riding outside, it knows, okay, I'm on this bike. And then if you're riding on Zwift, it's, you can set a different bike for Zwift versus road rides. And it keeps track of not just, you can probably set it for just chains, but you can then assign all of the components, and it basically
Wow.
just keeps track of the full wear for every piece of your bike. And
Tires, that'd be good for
yep,
tires.
it
and
keeps track of tires, it keeps
brake
track of
pads.
all of the things, and gives you a sense of like, okay, it's time to, time to change, or at least time to check each of those components.
Oh, cool. Thank you for the tip on that. I just wrote that down. I'm going to download that here in a second.
I know it's on Android. I don't know if it's on iPhone, but I assume that there's at the very least an equivalent.
Perfect. Nice. Looking forward to it.
All right. Anything else we want to chat about? It's been a pretty full around the horn.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a no. So with that, thank you to Steph Etienne. Thanks to John Keenan. Thanks to Chris Greenland. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Have good
See
races,
ya.
everybody.